Well, Apple has finally entered into the AI race, and boy, is it actually a mixed bag. I mean, you got Elon Musk saying it's absolutely terrible for a variety of reasons, and then you have others saying it is the biggest day since the iPhone announcement, so the opinions are all over the map. So let's see exactly what Wall Street's saying, and I'll give you my take on everything that they're saying as well, what it means for Apple stock, and more importantly, should I be buying more Apple stock or not? Just make sure you like the video if you like getting the truth without the hype. All right, so let's jump into it here. Let's see exactly what the Wall Street guys say. They make some good points, they make some not so good points. So let's kind of work through them all, and I'll give you my opinion on each.
All right, for more on Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, let's bring in Deepwater Asset Management's Gene Munster. Gene, what'd you make of this?
Melissa, I felt like I was watching a different event just hearing the lead up. I got a ton of respect for your Steam panel. I had a totally different takeaway. True, check the box. All these features were to be expected, but Apple's doing two things here, and I think Steve framed this in. Number one is that they are allowing basically 20% of the world's population to access AI for the first time. We talk about it all the time. Most people have never experienced it, and they just made it that you can access in a personalized way that gets to your text, your photos. Elon may have a different view about Apple's privacy. It's a lot better than Meta or Google. So that's piece number one.
All right, so obviously you touched right there on Elon, privacy, all that good stuff like that. Where he's correct is yes, their privacy is better. And there are a lot of different layers to what Elon said that go well beyond privacy and everything else. Again, this isn't really the place to get too into that at this stage, so we're not going to discuss that here. But the bigger framework there that he's working off of that I want you to keep in mind is personal AI, personalized for you because of all the data that Apple does collect on everybody who's in the ecosystem. And again, their security is better than everyone's in regards to having that information not get out. But in regards to creating an AI product, if you remember my video from the beginning of the year about Apple, if they took a significant dive whenever they announced these AI things, it's going to be the first truly personalized AI. And they're in a unique opportunity to give you something that nobody else can give you because they don't have an ecosystem that is closed loop like the Apple ecosystem is. So obviously that's the first point right there. And I agree with them that that's absolutely where their niche per se is going to be in the AI race. It's not going to be in a lot of these overarching things. It's in that personalized space, which is kind of individual to them anyways, and they're the only ones that can really provide it. Now, will it translate to more sales and all that other good stuff? That's a different discussion there altogether. But in regards to the only ones being able to offer something that great, definitely they're in the lead in regards to that.
Number two is just that, taking the friction out of access to it. You don't have to sign up for a ChatGPT account. It just comes with your device. I thought the demos that they showed, again, it was expected, but for the average person, this is must have. If you don't have AI powered, if Apple didn't do this, they would be totally out of luck over the long term. They did it, and I think that this will ultimately, the punchline here is they're going to grow next year faster than the street thinks. The street's looking for 6% growth. I bet it's going to be 10% plus.
Wow, that's a big jump there in regards to the number possible. I would agree. I think a lot of that depends upon the release of the iPhone 16 and kind of what that entails in regards to these AI things being included in it and things of that nature. That for me is the key to it. Now, if it was just a regular iPhone 16 release, I'd say that was just somebody being incredibly over bullish, kind of like a lot of folks are overly bullish in a lot of different stocks for no real good reason other than it's just going to go up. But in regards to this specifically, depending upon how the 16 works and how the gap in terms of not just the AI piece to it, but in regards to how it works with AI being greatly above, every phone before then, if they're able to create that gap and make it large enough, absolutely we could be in for one of those a new super cycle in regards to iPhone sales. So, huge chance at this stage in order for them to get there.
Your meeting in for
calendar 25. Yeah, it's going to take time. Correct. I agree with Dan. I think Dan was talking about it's going to take time for this to build momentum. It's going to, this won't happen overnight, but this is a big deal. If you don't have these features, it's the fabric that's going to run the devices. If you don't have it, you're going to feel like you're on a flip phone.
So, Gene, when you think about sort of how this is monetizable, is it initially mostly going to be on the hardware side? In other words, when you're upgrading your iPhone, you're thinking about getting the more expensive version as opposed to the less expensive version, and eventually it turns into a services stream?
think that's right. The first chapter, and that I put that chapter over the next 1 to 3 years, is going to be this slow rising tide of upgrade. iPhone returning to 5%, 7% growth. I think the second phase is probably some specific services that they'll have around kind of higher feature AI. They didn't talk about agentic AI, agent AI. This is basically the ability, we've talked about this in the past, of AI actually doing tasks for you, complicated multi-layered tasks, contacting people, organizing things. That's a big opportunity longer term. But you are correct, Melissa. This is about getting people to recognize that their current phone isn't nearly good enough. And I think that they hit it. This is the biggest day for Apple since the iPhone, full stop.
Okay, well, I'll get to that point there in just a second. In regards to it being something that drives you to the hardware that eventually drives services and other revenue in the future, obviously larger profit margin in the future, that is kind of the Apple model. That is absolutely what they have been creating with the ecosystem for years, is that sort of dynamic within the actual ecosystem. So that fits perfectly with exactly the Apple way of doing things. We can agree on whether or not that's the best way of doing things, but you can't argue with the results in terms of profits to the bottom line of the company. And in regards to locking more and more people into the ecosystem, it absolutely accomplishes both of those, and to a very, very high level like we've never seen before. So something that I absolutely believe, absolutely think that's exactly what's happening. Now, in regards to it being like, the biggest announcement since 2007, I don't know if I'd take it that far yet. Now, again, on the flip side of that, I remember when that announcement came because I was a shareholder at the time, and it was kind of laughed at. It was kind of scoffed at. It was kind of like, one, who the heck is going to pay that for a phone? That is an insane amount of money. Which of course now that's all, you can't get a friggin' iPhone 7 for used for that price now. But at the time it was obscenely expensive. And it was one of those deals that the only people that are going to want that are the techies, the people that are super into tech and things of that nature. Nobody else is going to want that. So to me, I still don't feel it's quite a 2007 or just as important as the 2007 announcement or just as big as the 2007 announcement, because it's just not there. And you're not seeing a significant shift. Now, maybe in regards to the current state of AI, it's a significant shift. But in terms of, how people actually live life and do business, I think we're getting a little bit over the top here with that take. That's just not.
Genius Tim, I'm going to kind of repeat my view because I think I'm more in agreement with you, and that's not what I'm here to do. Is say, hey, but what I'm hearing is that every major technology company, including Microsoft and ChatGPT and Google, they have to work with Apple, and that this is still, this installed base is the ticket to implementation for the biggest AI companies in the world. But it doesn't happen without Apple. And so the question really is, because if we all agree that the refresh isn't that compelling or necessary until 25, what are they going to do? What is it going to require for them from a technology perspective to get that phone in shape to be able to support all this?
So this year, the phone, their overall business is going to be up about 2%. Calendar 24 is not going to be a particularly good year. It's going to be better than the down 2% over the past year and a half. But so to answer your question, there's not a lot that they can do now. This really comes down to what's going to happen in the fall. And I predict there's going to be 10, 15% of the base is going to get these devices. They're going to show it to their friends, and they're going to want to get their next, they're going to want to move to upgrade. So I think this is a very real upgrade cycle. I do caution that my one cautionary piece is I'm talking about 1 to 3 good years. I think the stock goes up on that. There is an underlying question about where does the core competency of AI lie? Apple did 2 today. They're working with GPT. They're doing some of their own, but you really have to have all of your AI under your control for your destiny. That's a challenge longer term for Apple. It's a challenge for Google. It's a challenge for Microsoft and Amazon. So I think that from a tech.
So I like that point right there. And that one 100% agree with. Again, although I haven't agreed with everything here, I do agree with that one, that in the future, Apple has got to pull this completely under the Apple umbrella, like they're basically doing with everything else, right down to the chips now. They make their own chips. So this is another piece that they have to kind of get away from third parties and get back to themselves, get it underneath the Apple umbrella, something that they own, they control wholly, they control fully, and move forward from there. So that's definitely something on the long-term radar. In terms of short-term, though, this is probably the quickest way they could get there and get something that worked properly within the ecosystem there, and that's why they chose to go that route.
Standpoint, Tim, what do they need to do? They need to do all this stuff themselves. They can't rely on a third party to power these insights.
What do you make of this, Gene? If Apple integrates, I'm reading, so apologies, OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies. That's Elon Musk, who seems to have some problem with Apple. I mean, does that make any sense? Or other people going to have those same concerns?
I think highly of Elon. It's hard to read what he's thinking there. I would say this: when it comes to privacy, Apple's not perfect, but they're better than, definitely better than Google when it comes to privacy, or Meta, and those are really some of your other choices. And so I think that this is, I think Elon's kind of surfing the headlines today and trying to poke the bear. And I don't think there's going to be any substance. I don't think outside of China, you'll definitely see this in China, but outside of China, I would be very surprised if you see organizations starting to ban Apple devices based on access to generative AI.
Gene, it's Dan. I consider you a great.
Yep, 100% agree there. Yeah, nothing there, nothing really to discuss. And yes, he's had issues with Apple in the past, going way back before any of the latest drama this year or last year, the year before, going way back 2016, 17, 18, somewhere right up in there. And who knows before then what was there when they were starting up PayPal and other things of that nature. So, yep.
You've been a great friend of the show for a very long time. I respect your work tremendously, but I want to give you the opportunity to take back that comment that this is the biggest day for Apple since they launched the iPhone in 2007.
I've thought a lot about it since March 26th. That's when Greg Jaws put the text out that said this is basically saying this is going to be an AI event. I thought about what the iPhone brought. Really what the iPhone did is it added touch. Why that's so important is that opened up the whole concept of having apps on your device. It changed a phone to a computer in your pocket. That was through touch. That was a huge deal. It took years to fully realize that potential. When it comes to AI, the ability to infuse intelligence throughout all the products to allow you to do things different, in my view, is a bigger step forward than touch. And I think touch was the last big one with the iPhone. So have a ton of respect. I love you, Dan. I'm going to stand behind that. I think this is the biggest day since 2007.
All right. So as you heard, he's obviously thinks it's the biggest day in 2007. He's going to stand by it. Again, a lot of times, especially in today's world, when I heard something like that 10 years ago, I sometimes would believe it. But in today's world where everybody's trying to get something, a soundbite, a clickable, whatever, you want to call it there for social media, a lot of times there's so much hyperbole and these grandiose claims all the time that they just kind of become, I don't really believe that. He'll have something else that's the greatest thing since sliced bread next week. Not necessarily Gene, but just in general. There'll be somebody else out there making some sort of an outlandish claim. It's not, to me right now, going to be that way. And more importantly, it's going to integrate so seamlessly with our lives. I'm not sure it's going to have the same here-to-here impact. The phone basically was just, cell phone. Before then, flip phone was essentially just having your phone at home, no longer need to be at home. I have one with me on the go. And then all of a sudden, Apple changes the game. Now I have basically a computer, like he said, in my hand, in my pocket. That's a huge shift versus what we currently have right now, which would be a phone that can also, AI is coming in and doing things within the phone, assisting, making things a lot easier and such. I'm not sure the shift is as dramatic in terms of turning it into something completely different altogether than it already is right now, because it already is a computer in my pocket. It's just significant enhancements in that computer, which to me is completely different than going from strictly a phone to now a computer and a phone and then, basically everything else in the world all in one spot there. So I think it's a little bit hyperbole, a little bit too much there from Gene. So no, I don't agree there with that. Not saying it's not important, not big. More importantly, I think it's big for the stock because if you've noticed, Apple dips, but not like everybody else. Apple got beat up in 2022, but not like everybody else because it has a huge institutional shareholder base, a huge shareholder base that's not interested in being at the forefront of AI. They don't want that. They want much more the safer play. They want much more the practical play. And I think Apple's giving their investors exactly what they want, which of course means more stability for the stock. Now they are officially, quote unquote, in the AI race per se. I know they call it Apple Intelligence instead of artificial, whatever. It's just Apple branding, at its peak per se, or at its core. But in regards to the stock, I think it adds more stability to the stock. You can no longer say they're not in the race. You can say, hey, they're behind, they're this, that, but they're not really competing directly with any of those other companies that are out there. So again, it's kind of they kind of have their own thing going over here and they're in the race. And as we've seen, if you're just in the race for right now, you're good to go. And more importantly, if it starts driving revenue, i.e. it kicks off a new iPhone super cycle, it kicks off some other services a year or two from now that really draw on a lot of revenue for Apple, and of course, bottom line profits in the end, that is going to be a huge catalyst for that stock to continue to move forward and to continue to show we're in the race. We're just doing it the Apple way over here in a very different way than maybe others are. Now, I know there's a lot of folks who wish that they would lean forward like they used to underneath Steve Jobs and a lot of other things like that. But, we are well past a decade, past that time frame now. And in regards to a shareholder, in the end, although I would love to see a lot more innovation from Apple, I absolutely would. In the end, it's about revenue and those bottom line profits. And right now, as it's set up, we'll wait and see. You've got to actually see if they're actually able to execute. But for right now, they have a platform and a base to give us exactly what we want as shareholders there. So for me, I think this is net positive for Apple overall. I do think we're going to see continued share price appreciation into the future, which is great for me because, of course, I have a lot of Apple shares, so I'm a very, very happy shareholder with what they're doing right now. And Apple is on my watch list to buy, which if you want to see my complete watch list with price targets for Apple and a bunch of other stocks, you want to take 5 courses for free, you want to see my buy and sell alerts on Apple anytime I buy, you want to take some free coaching, be a part of the best 6, 7, and 8 figure Discord out there, and so much more, guys, make sure you check out the pinned comment down there and see if a membership's right for you. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market, and click here to see my exact plan for this market. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.